Canadian Immigration Live Q&A. I am your host, Mark Holthe, today, and this one is once again a special one with, flip it over here, Alicia. Welcome, Alicia. How are you?
I'm well, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing good. All right. Some of you are probably thinking, are they going live? It says on the YouTube channel that they've got a live stream happening. Where are they? Where are you, Mark? Well, sometimes, as you can see, I've got a little bit of a haze. You see that little haze there? Sometimes the system just doesn't work. And I'm waiting on my new camera to get set up. And unfortunately, because of that, I've been using the camera right on my computer. And it's not bad, but I've used the green screen here behind me, and it's just not lining up properly. But hey, these live Q&As are all about substance, not form. And so fortunately, Alicia looks good. I look kind of weird, but the content will be good. So let's see who is tuning in here, Alicia. I'm going to pull up our comment section here and see. We've got a bunch of people. Usually, this was also a little bit of a spontaneous one because we'd hoped to do it yesterday, but I was dropping my son off, and I think many of you are probably aware of this. He is headed, well, he's probably touched down now in Chile. I don't think I've got any official confirmation from him, but I think he's in Chile now. And so we took him up to the airport in Calgary. And so yesterday was a little bit of a write-off, and Alicia graciously agreed to come join me on Friday, but we're going to try to do the kind of the combo Alicia Mark immigration Q&As on Thursdays, but we had to push it off. So there you go. There's a little bit of an update. All right. So how are you doing, Alicia? How are things up in Calgary?
I'm well. We had a blustery time with the big storm that came in, but nothing like BC, so I'm very grateful that everything's all dry here.
So I know it was pretty windy on the way back from Calgary. And I think many of you, if you've ever traveled through Alberta, know how the wind just blows so hard sometimes in the early winter months. And, we just have a horrible wind, and it blows so hard that it'll blow over the tractor trailer. So there was one that the wind had pushed the whole unit right over into the ditch, and it had blocked all of the traffic. Fortunately, we were coming home, and it was on the lane going up to Calgary, but that is very, very common. And then you add a little bit of snow, icy conditions, and oh boy, not good. Not good at all. All right, so there's a little bit of an update. So as always, guys, as you're tuning in here, make sure that you just post in the comments below where you're tuning in from. We'd love to give everybody a shout out. And that's kind of the fun part of this. We've got a few other videos coming as well, Alicia, that are going to be recordings in the traditional sense of a YouTube video on various topics. And maybe you can just let the listeners know of what is coming as far as
Sure.
some of the topics.
Yeah. So one thing that I've been getting some questions about, or even other immigration lawyers are thinking about, is, well, what sort of work can you claim for a Canadian experience class when somebody has been on a study permit? And so this is something that can trip people up. There was another blog article that I wrote about it specifically before the TR to PR happened, because students were confused about when can you start counting your work experience. But there's another question that comes up, and that's, what happens if your school has a closure? Or what happens if you're on medical leave as a student? Can you work? And so we'll talk about that as part of the video that we'll record. And then also what happens, what can you count for work towards Canadian Experience class as a student?
Yeah. And those are some, like Alicia said, those are some of the things that we just received so many questions about that it just makes sense for us to do a little bit of an explainer video on that issue, just to teach people and help them understand. There's nothing worse than filing an application and realizing that you either don't meet the qualifications or somehow that someone told you, no, you're not eligible, but really you are. So hopefully we can identify some of those and get those addressed. All right. Okay, so let's see who's tuning in here. Hopefully we've got a few people that stuck it out there with our delays getting this launched, and I apologize for that. Let's just see who we've got here as I pull up a few comments. Okay, PSJ here is in BC, and yes. Oh yes, we've got wind here, but absolutely, PSJ, there's massive flooding. The damage is just unbelievable. A number of years back, Alicia, you also experienced flooding in Calgary. When was that? That was a while back.
I think that was 2013 now. Yeah, it was crazy to watch. Fortunately, where we live, it was okay. We're high enough up on the hill, but yeah, the bridges were closed. I was volunteering at one of the immigrant serving organizations downtown. We had our annual general meeting, and I was worried about whether I could get back because the bridges were all closing downtown, and we had to get out of downtown because it was flooding in Calgary. So my heart goes out to everybody in BC that has lost animals or property, and they're having to now deal with the cleanup of this flood.
Yeah. So many, millions of dollars. And I can't remember if it was the Abbotsford mayor or who it was that said even into potentially into the billions of dollars cleaning that up. And I remember in Calgary, I was downtown as well, just leaving. And it's hard to imagine the entire downtown core and, the Saddle Dome and, all of these venues that were flooded. And so we feel for you, PSJ, and all those people in BC. We've got Kashan is tuning in from Toronto. Hello, Kashan. Good to see you. Akram says, hey, Alicia and Mark, have you read the article about backlog numbers? What do you think? Okay, I don't know if you know that article. Do you know which one he's referring to?
I'm not
This
sure
is
which one
this
he's
this is
referring
our
to.
good friends over at CIC News, and so
Oh,
and so they talked about a backlog of I think 1.8 million immigration applications. Now let's put this into context. Yes, that is a massive number for sure, but that's all of them. So that's not just spousals. It's not just express entry or FSW. And yes, it seems like an astronomically high number, but the reality is, and yes, it is high, that encompasses applications across all immigration lines of business. And yes, those are massive numbers and great article, CIC News. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, Canada does process a lot of applications in a year, and the numbers are high, and that's why we're not seeing rounds of invitations, right, Alicia?
yeah. And I think some of that backlog too is dealing with the overseas processing for, resettled refugees and other things also.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a ton that have come through from the Afghan crisis. All right, Ravneet says, do we expect CEC draws in these months of 2021? Personally, I'm beginning to doubt it. I'm personally thinking that we're probably not going to see an ITA until the new year. I wouldn't be surprised, but it just depends on how fast they can work through these backlogs, because really it makes sense to hold off on bringing in new applications until you get a handle on this 1.8 million that CIC News has reported. Okay, Lay in Kuwait. Hey, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. We've got Dren Reb, who's over in Singapore. Wow, you guys have been up late, really up late. That's awesome. Thanks for the support. And then we've got Osman right here. Alicia, Osman's right up there in Calgary with you. Okay, let's see. We've got a question here. So this one is from Chaitanya. Oh, Chaitanya, hello, you, my friend. How you doing? Okay, he says, just curious, what should I do? Got the first portal email on November 9th, sent them details of portal credentials. Still waiting on the email back for declaration. Please let me know what to do. Thanks. Chaitanya, he's talking about the PR landing portal. It is a disaster. Every time I talk about any portal, the response is a disaster. Look, what we're seeing from some people is they're getting the request over and over and over again to do the landing, when in reality, you've already done it. So rest assured, you've done it. It's in there. And now it's just, you just have to be patient. I wish I could give you any, more information than that, Chaitanya, but Chaitanya has been working with me for a while here now. He's had a number of challenging situations, but he's in the final good stages. But the portal's just, it's a problem. Use the web form. Don't hesitate to advise them if things are still not moving forward. We're the 19th today, so this is 10 days, and I've seen people who've been in there waiting longer than that, Chaitanya. So just hang in there. And if you want to use the web portal just to say, hey, I've sent everything in, what's up? Otherwise, it's just a waiting game, my friend.
And I'll add to that too, Mark.
Mhm.
So if people are using the portal, take a screenshot, right? When you've
Yeah.
submitted it, take a screenshot so that if you do have to do a web form inquiry afterwards, you can upload that screenshot and say, here's the day that I did it, here's proof that I've actually submitted.
Yeah, exactly. Great tip. I just finished. I've had 5 consults this morning. That was another one of the reasons why we were backed up a little bit here. And Chanel joined me on those consults, and it was we covered a lot of issues, but this is one of them. Chaitanya, is people who've submitted their requests and are wondering what's going on. Whether it was a request for more information, whether it was a request, or they tried to upload something to correct a mistake, a potential misrep, which go back to the YouTube channel and watch that scary episode that Alicia and I did on misrepresentation. If you guys have not done it, I'm going to plug that thing every single time that we go live, Alicia, because I'll be honest, this is something that people just do not appreciate enough, the consequences. I had a consult with someone just recently, and I'm just going to flip over here and see if I can get to our screen here. Just give me a second. Let's see if this works. Oh, there we are. Hey, that's not too bad. It's a little bit off kilter here, but that's okay. So you can see this one right here on misrep. You absolutely need to go watch that one, because one of the things that we're seeing more and more often is that IRCC is just, they're cranking up the cruelty factor when they're processing these applications and really showing very little mercy to individuals that have had anything that could be perceived to have been misrepresentation. Alicia, I just got an email from Connor down in Chile right this second. It's hard not to want to read it while I'm doing a live one, but do you know what? I'm going to share it with all the listeners, because I am so excited. This is awesome. I wonder if I can even share it with everybody. That would be kind of fun. Let's see. Why not? We do things kind of crazy here. Why not? Let's see. Oh, not that one. I'm going to flip over here and see if I can change this to mail. That work? There it is. There's the email from my son here. Let's see what he said. Hopefully there's nothing too embarrassing in here. I haven't even read it yet. I made it to Santiago. Surprisingly, the plane rides were not as bad as I expected. I don't have much time to write, but I'm currently quarantining with some other missionaries in some of the other apartments. We will be here until we get our COVID tests back. Then we will do some orientation stuff and head off with our trainers to our areas. Santiago is very pretty. Some places look really dry and others are super green. I'm excited to be here and can't wait until I can message or FaceTime you guys again. I've been taking, I think, lots of photos, so don't worry about that. I'll have to send them later. I got through customs fine. Everything went well. Even my son had to deal with immigration, you guys. And that's all for now. Just wanted to let you guys know I made it okay. So there we go. Awesome. So, woohoo! That's fantastic. Now, we are going to be missing Connor for almost 2 years. So this is a big deal for us. So, but yeah, that was fun. I couldn't help myself. It just popped up in the notifications. Now I'm going to turn my notifications to do not disturb until this evening so that we're not impacted. Okay, let's see who else we've got here. So we've got Shika says it's sunny there. Enjoy the sun. Enjoy the sun. Okay, here's one from Anshit. And maybe Alicia, you can jump in on this one. Can I travel to India if I only have e-Cooper? Is it safe?
Well, whether it's safe or not is another issue, but in terms of immigration safety, so the problem is once you have your electronic confirmation of permanent residence, you're landed, you're legal, you're great, you're a permanent resident legally. However, in order to get back into Canada, you need to have either a permanent resident card or a permanent resident travel document. And so, if you don't have your permanent resident card, so part of this whole portal process is that they are supposed to be sending you your permanent resident card as part of that process. However, it might take months. And so, if you do choose to travel without your PR card, you're going to have to apply when you're outside of Canada for a permanent resident travel document. And you're going to have to submit that to the Foreign Office, usually the Visa Application Center. And the risk here is that it might take them a very long time to process that overseas application, and you might not be able to get back into Canada because to fly in back to Canada, you either require a valid PR card or a PR travel document.
Excellent. Okay, let's see here. Okay, we've got Zakaria here, who's over from Nairobi, Kenya. Excellent. It's so fun to see where people are tuning in from. This is great. Okay. Okay, so here's one we get a lot, and I'm probably going to skip through these, but we'll address daily right now. So, or Dali says, hello, I got a PNP from New Brunswick. I'm out of Canada and I apply for permanent residence through express entry. According to your experience, how long can it take? So this is something that neither Alicia nor I can answer at this stage. And I know in the past, we've looked at the processing times. Let's flip over here, Alicia, and just take a look at this. And I'll actually make this a little bit larger so that it's easier for people to see. So you can check the current processing times. And so when you go in here and you select which application type, usually economic immigration, and then we'll go here and we'll say it's a provincial nominee. And then the next one is online versus via express entry, yes. And then you check processing times. And you'll see here, you can see how it says 6 months here. But if you go back here, it always comes down to this. So if you look here, processing applications normally, they can't, okay, process them normally or give accurate processing times for most applications. So even though we know that this one was last updated on September the 23rd, they're still pretending like 6 months is kind of the process. But I think most of us are very well aware that it's probably going to be a lot longer than that. And it depends on the country that you're applying from. So we can't give you accurate information. Heck, if immigration can't, we can't either. And I know there's websites out there that kind of try to track in real time, through crowdsourced data where people might be at in the queue. I'd recommend that you go check those out. But other than that, it's a great mystery. Okay. Oh, look at Amy's response here. The flood is tiers of applicants waiting. That's probably not yeah, that's not too far off. Absolutely. Okay. Parneet says, I applied under TR to PR pathway on May 6th, 2:55 Eastern time. So just under 3 hours after it opened. Applied under the essential healthcare stream. I haven't received anything yet. Should I be worried? I think the answer is no. Provided you've got your confirmation that it was filed properly, and you're able to, go back in and see and confirm that it was submitted. The reality is these applications are all over the map. Now, I'm a little surprised. May 6th was the day that everybody filed. And if you haven't received anything in that, in that time period, we're really up to the period where really people should be receiving acknowledgements of receipt. You might want to go back and check your junk mail and make sure that any notification didn't somehow slip through there. I don't know, Alicia, if you have any other advice for Parneet, but it is kind of, that's pretty, we're in that range where people are, to some extent getting those AORs.
Well, and I've got good news too, because at our firm, we only took one TR to PR applicant.
Yeah.
And so the good news is my TR to PR applicant just got landed. So
Wonderful.
they are processing these files. And in this case, the applicant was asked for some additional information. And so there was a bit of back and forth to provide that additional information. So yeah, I mean, if you haven't done a web form inquiry, I know they say don't do a web form inquiry. We're not going to pay any attention to you on the TR to PR, but you might as well. There's no harm in submitting it.
Yeah. And I know from my perspective too, when I look at darn background screens driving me crazy. From my perspective, I think it took us 8 minutes to file ours. So we were just 8 minutes after it opened. And my client is still waiting because of a Mexican police certificate. And so, there's a wide variety of reasons why the finalization takes a little bit longer. But in your situation, 3 hours. One thing you have to factor in too, Parneet, is that the international graduate stream, filled up completely that day. And the number of applications that were submitted in those first hour, 2 hours was enormous. Like realistically, it was pretty close to almost all of the international graduates were submitted, by that time. So it's not unusual that you would still be waiting. It's not, but just continue to monitor it and and then kind of go from there. I'm just going to pull up Raj here. So Raj, you may have posted your question before we started the live stream. So what we'll do is let me see if I can find it. Raj's question here. Okay. Studied in the US for 1 semester as an exchange student. I mentioned that in the travel history of the EAPR and not in the address and personal history, and submitted it. Is this counted as a misrep? Well, I think in these situations, Raj, it's probably not counted as a misrep. It probably would have been better for you to have included that in the personal history. But in your situation, if you wanted to, provide clarification, you could do it. But yeah, they can see how you've indicated, and if you put it as a travel history and you kept your home country as the address, and within the personal history, you probably wanted to list that in the personal history. You can always submit a web form to clarify. Any addition, Alicia?
I was just going to mention a case that was brought up just recently. Bless you.
Mhm.
Um, it was a recent case. It's called Manny Candon versus Canada, and the neutral citation is 2021 FC 1211. But it's a misrep case, and it was somebody did a visitor visa application, and here's what happened. They were going through an arranged marriage process, and they were living in Poland, and they decided they'd come to visit a friend in Canada. But it wasn't the friend that they were supposed to marry. It was some other person. And meanwhile, their families and their fiance decided, hey, I'm going to surprise her when she gets here, and I'm going to go pick her up at the airport, and we're actually going to get married. And apparently she didn't know. And she had said on her visitor visa application, I'm going to go see a friend, right? It's just a friend. But it wasn't this person she was supposed to marry. And immigration found out about this somehow, not sure how, and they tried to say misrep against her and try to bar her. And there were affidavits, I guess, that she got from her parents and the fiance and other people. And still immigration said, nope, too bad, we're keeping that misrep finding against you on the procedural fairness letter. And they took it to federal court and they actually won, because there was no indication that immigration had actually considered the evidence. There was no indication of what the reason was for them upholding that misrep finding. But guys, this is pretty scary. If you come as a visitor, you said you're coming to see a friend, you're surprised, right? You're not aware of the fact that somebody's coming to meet you, your fiance is coming to meet you at the airport, but immigration finds out about it. So misrep is something that absolutely keep top of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Another question. Okay. Hamza says, does working for a US company through a Canadian PEO account towards CEC, living in Canada under proper authorization? So working for a US company through a Canadian, I wonder if it's our good friends there in Calgary. What do they call themselves? Um, oh, the company that I'm thinking of, Alicia, the one that rented out all that space downtown and
Oh,
basically parks them. What are they called? I probably shouldn't even bother giving them a shout out. Anyway, so the answer is probably no. Hamza, I think is probably safe to say. So if you're providing work, you said you're working for a U.S. company through a Canadian PEO company, or I don't know what count stands for. For a Canadian PEO count towards CEC, living in Canada under proper authorization, that would be tough. I guess I don't know, Alicia. What are your thoughts on that, Hamza? We're definitely going to ring this one right here. Oh, the volume is turned down for my sound effect. We're going to ring this one right here, and I think definitely you need to book a consult with us on that one, because really it comes down to if the employer is truly Canadian and how that structures, and if your work is directed and controlled and run by the Canadian operation, it's going to be, that's really what the question is going to be.
yeah.
Any
Yeah, you
words
have
of
to be
wisdom on that
employed.
one?
Yeah, you've got to be employed in Canada. Normally, ideally, you're getting paid through the Canadian entity of that organization. So if you're saying you're working for the US company, then normally if you're working for a US company, you can't be getting Canadian work experience unless you can really clearly demonstrate that what the nature of your relationship is. So it depends on what sort of contracts there might be in place between the Canadian and the US entities. But generally, you've got to be paid by the Canadian organization, you've got to be properly authorized to work in Canada, and you've got to be doing, if it's an employer specific and a NOC specific work permit, you've got to be doing only that work.
Mhm. Yeah. Simply stated, we need a whole lot more information to be able to let you know. But yes, head over here to our website and you can just click right on here. You can book a consultation with Alicia. Yeah, head on over there. And that's probably the best thing that we can do at this stage or recommend, Hamza. Interesting situation though. Man, why is the name of that entity? I should know because yeah. Anyways, they didn't like some comments we made with the CBA. But should keep my mouth closed about that. Okay. Anyways, let's see who's next here. Oh, Shatanya. Hey, I'm glad you're good, my friend. Nice to see you as well. And it's our pleasure to help. And hopefully sooner, yes, rather than later. The final step. You've come a long way. You sure have. All right. Okay. So Vinny says, all the requests via RCC web form. This one, oh my goodness. Okay, let's read it anyways. All the requests via the IRCC web form haven't been answered. Instead, getting auto reply messages that IRCC only answering urgent matters. Could I continue to live in Canada as legal resident without a PR card? Okay, so Vinny, actually, Alicia, do you want to tackle this one? I think what they're asking is they probably are a permanent resident, but their card's expired. But
Right. And I assume if you don't have a PR card, but you're continuing to live as a legal resident, then yeah. So this is assuming that you've got finally your permanent residence, you're living in Canada, and your PR card expires because it has a validity date on the back of it. It says when you've landed. But keep in mind that the PR card is only your ability to get back into the country. It isn't your status itself. So your permanent residency, you have an obligation to maintain permanent residency by residing in Canada physically. There are some narrow exemptions to certain circumstances where you can physically be outside of Canada, but if you're employed by a government agency and that's a condition of your work, it's very narrow. Generally, you have to be living in Canada. So if your PR card expires, you can still live in Canada. That is absolutely completely fine. It's just you can't leave Canada and then expect immigration to let you back in unless you have that PR card.
exactly. All right, let's jump to the next question. So this is Ahmed. He says, thanks for all the superb info you share. What are the requirements for an employer who wants to issue a job offer under the Express Entry FSW or CEC? So what I've done here, Alicia, I'll just cue this up for you. I know you got this one. Oh, I guess I better choose the right screen here. And we can maybe enlarge this just a little bit to make it a little bit easier. So this is the offer of employment for Express Entry. And I know the question that was asked was it was focused on FSW or CEC. So we're in this range. And this is the government website. This is the link that we would send you to, or, that we use for our own information. But you can see here, so the job offer, these are the basic kind of requirements here. But really what it comes down to is this. So here's your answer right here. So Alicia, do you want to give them just kind of a high level of kind of the three ways in which you can get those job offer points, which now are pretty important given how
Yeah.
competitive things are?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people make a mistake here. A lot of people think, oh, I've got a job offer, I can claim those arranged employment points. And not so unless you meet absolutely everything here. So that valid job offer from the employer has to be one employer. It can't be a conjunction or a combination of different employers. The job itself and the time that you're working has to be continuous. So you can't have breaks in your employment. It also has to be paid. So if you're doing some sort of unpaid internship or co-op term or something where you're job shadowing, that doesn't count. There's a bunch of case law about what constitutes wages. So be careful that it is actually paid. Full time, and immigration views full time as at least 30 hours a week. Make sure that when you're looking at your hours of work calculation, even if you're working 40 hours a week, knock off 10 hours. They're only going to count 30 hours. But if your work falls under 30 hours a week, you're not working full time anymore. So make sure
Yeah.
that you're always at working at least 30 hours a week. The work that you're doing has to be, so it can't be like seasonal agricultural work or something that's
Yeah.
only for a certain number of months a year. And this is the thing, the job offer has to be a new job offer, and it has to be valid for at least 1 year after you go through your whole PR application process, after you submit that EAPR, after you get your permanent residence. So that job offer is supposed to be valid for significantly more than a year if you're looking at submitting an express entry profile right now. Another thing that sometimes trips people up is that it has to be in the National Occupation Classification Code as a high skilled job, so A, B, or 0. Yeah, so
And
all
dun
those are
dun dun dun.
preconditions.
Yeah. And
Yep,
this, all of you post grad work permit holders, I'm sure you've got tons of employers that would love to give you an offer that contains all of this. And that's perfect, right? Is that all you need,
yep.
Alicia? Is that
No, no,
no, no, it is
no.
not. This is really where most people fall off the rails. They don't realize that there's this here. So
Yeah. It also must be made, and here's what is the kicker. So you have to have an employer with a new positive LMIA that names you for that position. It can't be an open permit. It has to be employer specific, named for that specific occupation. So the whole
so if
LMIA
so
process,
if I'm a post grad work permit holder, then Alicia, will this work for me?
no,
If
because
I'm
those
on a
postgrads,
spousal, yeah. If I'm
those
on a
postgrads are
spousal,
open.
they are.
No, if you're
And
on a
what
spousal, they're
about a
open.
C41 or 42? What about the spousal? If I'm accompanying my spouse who's in school or working on a skilled
Nope.
occupation, does that work?
No, those are no good either.
They're not. Okay,
Because
so
those are
this
all,
one,
yeah,
mhm,
those are
this one
all
here.
Yeah, everything Mark was talking about there, the post-grad work permit, the open spousal work permit, or accompanying a spouse who's studying, those are all open work permits. They are not employer specific and they're not based on an LMIA approval. So those do not count for employer experience for arranged employment. So you can't count that for express entry. The other option, so you either have to have a positive LMIA with a named employer for that job, or you have to be currently working in Canada. It does have to be that high skilled job. It does have to be a work permit that was already previously issued because of an underlying LMIA, labor market impact assessment that the employer had got. You've got to be working for that same employer. You've got
Yep.
to be authorized on the day you apply for permanent residence. So you can't have that work permit can't have expired. And the current employer has to give you that offer for at least 1 year after you become a PR.
Yep. Exactly. So you're
So
locked in. Option two, you're locked in with that employer. You're on an LMIA based work permit. You've been working with them from the beginning. You're continuing to work for them and all the way through until you get your visa issued. And that's something that some people don't realize as well. They submit their EAPR. They're like, great, I've got the LMIA, but I've got this other offer for this other company. I'm going to go switch over there, or I'm going to apply for a bridging open work permit, and then I'm going to go change employers and work for someone else. Well, if your job offer was based on option number two here, that no longer then maybe is met. And so you need to be
yeah,
very careful with that.
yeah. So option two, yeah, you can have an LMIA that was issued and you're working for that named employer, and then they still also have to give you that arranged employment letter saying that they're going to continue to employ you for at least a year. And in the meantime, probably you're going to have to get a new, or the company's going to have to get a new LMIA, and you'll probably have to renew your work permit.
And then
And then you've
option
got a third
three.
option. Yeah, okay. So this is where I think people do get confused. If you have a valid work permit for NOC A, B, or O that's exempt from needing an LMIA, and then right away people go, yay, I've got an open work permit, a postgrad. But no, because the next thing is, and you're currently working for an employer specified on the work permit. So keep in mind, it still has to be employer specific and you have to have 1 year of full-time work experience or an equal amount of part-time work for that employer. So you can only do that once you've met that 1 year threshold. And then you still have to have that valid job offer for arranged employment for at least a year after they issue your PR.
Which is all of this.
Yeah.
So,
So no open work permits.
so there you go. That, Ahmed, was like a separate video in and of itself with the level of detail. But there you go. Okay. Oh, Jason says he's finally got some news. Okay, now Jason, now I'm going to search the comments here. Let's see what Jason's news is. Was asking to do medicals again. Okay. Any idea how long between this and the next stage? Hopefully PPR. Thank you. Okay. Well, I can tell you, I can jump in on this one, Jason, and I can go back to the videos that are on our YouTube channel. And I'm trying to remember where it was. This one here. So this one, the clients in this video, if you go back and watch it, I guess a few people have watched this one. We've got about 11,000 or something. This one here was a video that I did specifically on the processing of these outland applications for a dependent that was in India. The principal applicant was in Canada. But when we look at timing, from the time in which they received what you've received, a request to do medicals, and when I look at your the information that you've shared here, Jason, I don't really know where you're at. I don't know if you're inside or outside. But for people that are outside, at least for them, once that request for a medical was triggered, the time in which it took for them to get that medical, to do it, or the medical request, do the medical, have it uploaded, and then them request the passport was about a month. So that was, I think I did this probably maybe about a month or so ago. I did that video. So that's kind of the time frame, I guess, Jason, that we're kind of looking at. I don't know, Alicia, if you've had any recent updates or anything to shed any extra light on that. Like I said, we don't really know where Jason is, like, whether he's applying inside or outside.
Yeah, it does depend on, of course, what kind of application you filed too. So I know I did get some good news on a spousal application that I was helping review. So in their case, they got the medicals really early. It was an overseas spousal, so they're both actually living overseas, which is a bit unusual, but they got the medicals early. In that case, the passport request came, but their passport, IRCC said your passport's got to be valid for 12 months, and their passport was valid for 10 months, so they had to go and scramble to get their passport renewed. And I think in their case, it was about 3 months between the medicals and the passport request.
And that's not unusual, right? That's fairly reasonable. Okay, let's jump down here. Okay, this is an interesting question. Okay, so Bar here says, "Hey, what's up, Mark? Okay, I hope you are doing fine. Do you think from the way IRCC is making it almost impossible to get a way to immigrate, that Canada doesn't want people to immigrate?" Well, if you watch the news and you follow the reports and the comments that our current Minister Fraser, has indicated, they intend to continue status quo, pushing forward, and even in some instances increasing the number of applicants that they're going to have, at least for targets for the coming years. Remember, immigration had set very lofty goals of over 401,000 new immigrants for this year alone. And it's arguable that they may not even be able to meet that level. Now, they're pumping out a ton of applications. I think just this last month alone, it was something crazy like 35 or 40,000, I think I heard. And so they're working extremely hard to cut through these backlogs. And but our current Minister Fraser, has indicated nothing about them slowing down or reducing the targets that they have for immigration. It's still very, very important. And so, yes, it's impossible because they're not issuing rounds of invitations at this moment, because they're trying to cull the backlog so that you don't have people held ransom for years waiting for their PR to be processed while, their life just crumbles down around them. And so, so hang in there, Bar, but we do not see, I think I can speak for Alicia. We don't have any indication, about that at all. Okay. Now, some people are asking some very specific questions. I'm going to skip through you and I'm just going to ring the bell and tell you to slide over here, as always, and book a consult with myself. We're going to get Chanel on here as well, our newest lawyer. But at this stage, it looks at least Igor's got it back so that the other site is up. So that's positive. So it's super easy. All you have to do is click on the link right here and you can get a consult with Alicia. Today's Friday. She's got spots open on Monday. So you can click there and book a consult, especially those of you who have very specific questions that are really going to require more from us in terms of background information. Okay. Danielle says, hey, can we expect another OINP tech draw before the new year? It's really hard to say. And we've talked about this a lot. And Alicia, maybe you have some secret intel with this insider within immigration. But for the most, for the rest of us, I can tell you, we never know what the PNP is going to do from one day to the next, whether that's Alberta, the BC PNP, Ontario, or any of them. Do you agree, Alicia?
I do. I mean, each province has a quota of how many nominations they can make in every calendar year. And so I think most of the programs right now are sitting down and, the TR to PR changed things up a little bit for a lot of provinces. And so they're probably looking and crunching numbers and trying to figure out, okay, well, how many invitations have we issued? How many have actually accepted them and moved forward? Because some people don't. They might have jumped ship and gone to TR to PR, but they're probably issuing the final ones for the year, and they'll probably look at their streams and say, well, policy wise, who do we want to prioritize in terms of what sort of work skill sets or other personal characteristics. So
one thing we can see for sure, Danielle, is that you've got a province who's created a tech draw to start with. And what that indicates is that clearly this is an area where they see there are shortages and that there's lots of demand for tech workers in Ontario. So when, I think it's more a question of when versus if. So as long as that program's in existence, we can expect that there's going to be another draw. Where the levels are, and they take a snapshot, right? It's not quite at the level where they're issuing rounds of invitations. It's usually a little bit under, and but not too low. So kind of in the 460s, almost that range tends to be, at least in the past historically. We don't know whether that's going to go up or down, but I think we can anticipate it. It's just a matter of when. We're just not sure. Okay, Jama says here, so they applied in 2019, still waiting. They've passed their medical. Do you know the next step from South Africa? So Jama, like we've said repeatedly with a lot of these, we just don't know, my friend. We just don't know. Okay. And Raja's pleading here. Please don't miss my question. I'm waiting for a really long time. Raj, your request was granted. Okay. Okay. SJ says, my work permit expires in February. I just had a consult about this. It's funny how you can read two words and you already know the direction they're going. I just had a consult today about this. Work permit expires in February. Express entry profiles in the pool. Will my profile move from CEC to FSW if I get the ITA after my work permit expires? Oh, actually, this is a different question. And I had already left the country till then. Maybe Alicia, what she's asking is she doesn't think that she can go through CEC if she's not in Canada anymore. Do you want to tackle that one?
yeah, so it's still possible to get a CEC invitation to apply if you for sure had that 1 year of Canadian qualifying work experience. So once you have that locked in, even if you have to leave Canada, and of course you have to comply with the your temporary residence obligations. So if you're only authorized to stay till February, you can't get an extension on your document, then for sure you've got to leave. But if you do have that 1 year, you've got your letter from your employer, you can prove for sure that you've chosen the right NOC, that you've got your pay stubs, you've got your other supporting evidence to prove that you actually did the 75% of the main duties for that high skilled NOC. It was in Canada, you were paid by your employer, and hopefully you've got your tax forms as well to back that up, or at least the T4s from your company, then hey, you've met that requirement for your minimum eligibility 1 year Canadian work experience, 1,560 hours. Make sure you have that 1,560 hours. If you were claiming 40 hours of work per week, and you didn't realize you could only claim 30, be careful of that. But if you do have that out, the number of hours, and you've got it over 52 weeks, then you can still leave the country. It's up to immigration whether they give you an invitation to apply under CEC or FSW. And so they haven't, of course, done any FSW draws this entire year, 2021. We don't know what'll happen next year. Presumably, at some point, they'll open up FSW again. You probably have an advantage, of course, if you've got that CEC Canadian qualifying experience, because they were, up until recently, still doing CEC draws. They may or may not do that for the rest of this year, but hopefully, at least for next year, they will.
I'm going to do one of these because this is why we do what we do. So clearly, SJ, someone had given her the impression that you can't qualify for CEC if you're not living in Canada. And there you go. Alicia clarified that is not the case. Awesome. Okay. All right. So PSJ here says, I want to apply for a parent super visa. I am a PR in Canada. Is it necessary to have to T4 to apply, or just pay stubs and job offer is fine? That's just kind of a broad question that factors in a lot of different things, Alicia. But what do you think about this one?
Yeah, so for the parent super visa, take a look at the program requirements because they specifically say, as the inviting child or grandchild, you have to prove that you can financially support your parents or grandparents. And they're going to give you ways that you can prove that. And normally you're going to be providing your notice of assessment and hopefully your T4 statements, pay stubs, and letters from your employer. But if you don't have that T4, um, I'm I'd be surprised that you don't have the T4 because the employer has to provide it at the end of the year. Maybe it's just because you haven't worked there for one calendar year and it didn't hit that cycle yet. So it kind of depends if you've got T4s and proof of income from other employers and how far back that goes. So you do have to meet the minimum financial eligibility requirements to put in that application on behalf of your parents or to show that you can financially support your parents.
Yeah. And Alicia, I look at the question and he mentions job offer is fine. I think probably he meant a reference letter, but what's the distinction between those two? What do you think? Someone who's got a
Yeah.
job offer versus someone who's has a reference letter.
So a reference letter would be somebody who has employed you, who's attesting or confirming to the fact that you were an employee, what you did, and what your pay was for what period of time. So that's in the past. You've already done it. A job offer is, hey, I will give you a job, but you're not my employee yet. And that you'd have to be really careful about because unless you can otherwise prove that you've been making enough money, a job offer for the future is not alone or by itself going to cut it.
All right. Manat says, do you think a new TR to PR pathway will open? What do you think, Alicia? I've said numerous times my thoughts on this, but what do you think?
Well, I guess it's possible, but they might be dealing with so much in terms of what they already have on their plate that they don't choose to go down that pathway again. It could be really targeted, right? They may not do it for international grads, but they might have it very targeted for specific streams of people that they want to attract or retain in Canada.
Yeah. And we love to speculate, Manat. We absolutely love. There was some comments by our previous minister, Mendicino, suggesting that they may consider this. But really, if you read carefully, they were looking at potentially extending it possibly to refugee claimants or people that were in Canada already that had been, working in positions where they were really, it was a needed commodity, and they toyed with the possibility of extending options for them. We haven't seen anything, but for, say, international grads, at least at this stage, I would say it's pretty unlikely. Essential workers at the time, they were extended that opportunity because of the work that they were doing in the midst of the pandemic, before the vaccinations were available, all of those things. So in a way, it was kind of a thank you to them, because of the sacrifices they made based on humanitarian and compassionate factors. So it wasn't just to meet quotas and levels planning for immigration, but there were other factors at play. So Okay, and then Parneet here responds, I check my junk mail every day. And healthcare people have started getting in those who applied on May 25th. And yes, I did receive the confirmation email on May 6th. So Parneet, your waiting game here. It's as simple as that. You are stuck in the waiting game. Okay. Okay, this is a more specific one that relates to express entry. Let's see if we can tackle this one, Zachariah. So, hello, Mark. Below is my ECA report. Okay, well, obviously it's not. Okay, this is what it says, I think, from the ECA report. The actual report isn't attached to this. Okay, completion of a college level certificate, 1 year, diploma, 3 years, and bachelor's degree, 4 years. I am eligible to claim CRS points for 2 or more certificates. What do you think, Alicia?
So when you look at the Express Entry page on education credentials, and I don't know, Mark, maybe you can
Yeah, I can
find
pull it up.
that in the background. It does give you a table, and it's helpful when you're looking at, what can you claim. So there's a difference between what you're going to put in your profile and then what you're going to upload as part of your education credential assessment. So really, it depends on what your education credential assessment says. And so depending on which organization you've gone to, they're going to give you an equivalency statement. But so that's basically going to be what you have to have. So if you go to an education credential assessment organization, there's listed organizations, and they tell you, well, no, we don't think it's going to give you the equivalent of 2 or more certificates, you can try to have that reassessed by another organization because maybe they'll have a different opinion. Um, at the end of the day, whatever the ECA says, that's what you need to rely on because that's what you're claiming as part of your profile.
And so if he says here in his ECA that it says, and we'll assume it's Wes probably, that completion of a college level certificate, 1 year, diploma, 3 years, bachelor's, 4 years. So if we roll off of that, then this is the CRS criteria page for education.
Mhm.
And what do you think, Alicia?
Yeah, so in order to claim it, you've got 2 or more certificates. So he's got 3 certificates, diplomas or degrees, and one of them has to be for a program of 3 or more years. And he says, yes, one's for 3 years, one's for 4 years. So yeah, from that, you should hopefully be able to claim that full 2 or more degrees.
And as always, the caveat is, Zachariah, we do not have the form in front of us. We're assuming that it's still valid. We're assuming that, that you're going to be able to actually establish all of those things. So on the surface, from what you've told us, yes, it looks pretty good.
So, and I will add to that too, there are some certain professional degrees that there's different rules for. So, it does depend on the programs that you took sometimes as well.
Yep. Okay, let's jump in here. So this one is from Tristana. She says, traveling to the US for an emergency, but my visa expired. I applied to renew my visa in September, haven't gotten any information back yet. Is there anything I can do to speed up the process, work permit? So Tristana, I'm going to jump in here, Alicia, and I'm going to ring the bell. Anytime we've got people that are in these types of, situations, um, yeah, so if you're traveling to the US, so basically she wants to get the visa renewed before she leaves and comes back in. I think both Alicia and I could probably answer on behalf. We would always tell our clients, look, you really, really don't want anytime you leave, there's no guarantee that you're going to be allowed back in. But, and this is why I ring the bell, you haven't really told us what the emergency is. And when it comes to emergency, sometimes you have to make decisions knowing that there is a risk on the immigration side because the reason for travel is so overwhelming it's truly, truly an emergency. I can tell you right now, if my mother was passing away, if she was in the last stages, there was an accident or she had an illness and I didn't have my work permit yet for Canada applied, and the choice was waiting for my work permit or being there in my mother's final days, I can tell you what my answer would be. But every person is different. The situations are different. And we probably need a whole lot more information before we can tell you much more than this, other than, yeah, it sucks. It's in the queue. You're waiting. And sometimes you have to make decisions, but we can't give you an answer right now, Trish.
What I would say to be careful on is and I don't know from the scenario there, but if you have submitted an extension on that work permit and it's in process, if you leave Canada, you lose that maintained status, right? You lose, if there was any sort of implied or maintained status, you'd no longer benefit from it if you leave the country.
Great answer. And this jumps back to what I'd said, that 1.8 million or whatever it was. So Shabam says, what are your thoughts on the backlog? I think we've covered this to a large extent. It's just going to take them time to work through it. If they can pump through 40,000 in a month, and those are all kinds of applications that they're processing. They're learning new ways. When it's kind of like anything, necessity breeds invention. And when the government is in a situation, they've had to adapt, figure out new ways of doing things, figuring out ways to expedite and process quicker. The whole concept of an e-Copart, right, Alicia, only existed because of the pandemic and their inability to land people through the traditional way. And now, why in the world would we ever require someone to go meet in person who's already in Canada, to verify their identity? All of that was done when they came in to get their original study or work permit or entry. And so, so those things happen, and I'm sure there's going to be new efficiencies that are going to be created as they try to work through these applications. So we will
Yeah,
see.
one other thing I'll mention there, Mark, is that immigration did get more money in the budget. And so this is part of their ability to process more applications is also directly related to their ability to have employees and officers who are able to be hired to do the reviews. So it's good news that they got more money, and hopefully they'll be able to process more people.
Yeah. Okay. This is a question. Maybe you can tackle this one. Once again, we are, we're kind of guessing, I guess. Planning on issuing an affidavit of support to my sister to come study here. So remember, this is Wanrek, Wanurk, who is looking to, it looks to me, provide the funds for education. What's a good rule of thumb in terms of fund levels in my bank account?
And on one of our previous live Q&As, we pulled up, there's program guidelines for immigration officers who are processing study permit applications. And there's a specific section in there that talks about, what proof of funds do I need to prove if I'm doing a study permit application? And specifically, they're looking at the applicant. So in this case, it would be your sister. They want to know that your sister has those funds. And if it's not funds that are properly earned by your sister, then there ought to be a, clear indication in that affidavit of how much you're transferring, where that money came from, the fact that you're doing a gift deed, so you're not asking for a loan, there's no repayment owing, you're doing this properly and legally transferring the money to her in her name. But if that's all of her funds and she's relying on you for everything, it makes it harder for immigration to see how she's going to self-support. So it does depend on, all of the factors for a study permit to show that she is able to financially afford not only tuition for the full first year of her program, but also incidental living expenses. So there is some guidance in there in terms of what a study permit applicant has to show for finances.
All right. So we're back to Raj again. Apparently our answer wasn't quite good enough. So is it counted as misrep or not? All right, Raj. So here's this question. This is back to the US one. I personally do not believe that failing to indicate that time in the US as in your personal history or your address history would be tantamount to misrepresentation. You've disclosed it in there. You just haven't disclosed it probably in the way that I would or Alicia would. Now, ultimately, whenever you have those situations, I advise people to go update it, provide more complete, information if you can. But ultimately, the fact that you've disclosed it in your travel history, even though it's not maybe how I would do it, it's not misrepresentation. At least that's how I feel. And I don't have a problem telling people what I think. I don't know, Alicia, there's always the possibility that some officer could take some crazy position, but that's why we have immigration lawyers, right? And if there's an unreasonable decision, then we'll challenge it. And I can tell you, if someone found misrepresent in that situation, Raj, then, if you retained us, we would file a judicial review application. And I have no doubt in my mind that it would be successful. provided there weren't other factors that we haven't been told here that could impact on this. All right. So based on the simple information that you provided, I can tell you that I don't think personally that would be considered to be misrepresentation.
And remember, you've got a few opportunities here, right? So proactively do a web form inquiry, clarify, if there is a mistake or if you think you should have, of course, put it in your address history or your personal history, then do that. You can change that form, you can upload it, and you can say, wait, I need to amend this. If for some reason immigration were to come back and give you that procedural fairness letter, well, then I'd say go consult with a lawyer.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's see if we can tackle this one. I'm not sure. When will my minor student, if I want to go to high school, grade 11, and my parents have work permit? Let's try this again. A minor student, if I want to go to high school, grade 11, and my parents have a work permit. I don't know I don't know what the question is here, Yvonne.
It it might be with respect to Section 30 sub 2 of the Act and when can you study and when do you need a study permit? Maybe. Um,
Maybe.
so if you're in Canada and somebody has parents who have a valid work permit and they're here for that work permit's valid for more than 6 months, then minor children are allowed to go to primary or secondary school, including high school, without having a separate study permit, but only if they're already in Canada. So if you're applying from outside Canada to come to join your parents, you would still have to apply for a study permit from outside Canada. Or if your parents were issued that work permit at the port of entry, then normally the officer is also going to want that outside Canada study permit. However, if you're in high school grade 11 and you're looking to graduate soon and you're looking at going to post-secondary, then you're not going to be able to study without a study permit. You're going to have to apply for a study permit. So if you're in grade 11, what I normally tell people is if you don't have a valid study permit because you're authorized under Section 30 sub 2 to be a minor studying without a study permit as long as your parents have a valid work permit, you can still apply proactively for a study permit in grade 11. And the reason that you would do this is that the normal immigration rules say you're only allowed to apply for a study permit from inside Canada if you already have a study permit. So here's the trick. Apply for a study permit on grade 11. All primary or secondary schools in Canada are properly designated learning institutions. You don't need a separate letter from your high school to confirm your enrollment, but you would prove something that you are properly enrolled in that high school. And you'd submit your application for your study permit from inside Canada. Immigration should issue it to you as long as you prove all the requirements for the application. And then once you have your study permit for your grade 11, if now you're then wanting to look to get into college or university or post-secondary, of course you have to pay your tuition as an international student and you've got to be accepted properly. But it allows you to apply from inside Canada. So that means you don't have to leave the country and apply from outside Canada.
All right. So Bass Ninja 85 asks, should I reapply GCMS a second time? First notes are
Yet to arrive.
Yet to arrive. Being 4 months, should I be worried about the delays with respect to the background, etc.? AOR August 2020. Yeah, I can answer very, very quickly, boss, that welcome to the new world we're dealing with. And communication from IRCC just really sucks right now. And hey, when people can't get answers through the call center, where they're going to go? They're going to send even more GCMS notes, requests, more ATIP requests. And then, when immigration says, well, we don't have time to deal with those, apparently they're just feeling like they don't have to respond to anyone. So unfortunately, you could request 5 or 6 or 7. Who cares? It's not going to harm anything. But they're just going to bundle up in the queue of backed up ATIPs.
So here's the thing on ATIPs. It's an access to information and privacy request. And so immigration or whichever government body that's receiving that ATIP request does have a responsibility to reply in a reasonable amount of time. So you can put in a complaint to the Privacy Commissioner if that ATIP request has been languishing for months and months. However, it depends on the wording of your request. And so if you are only asking for the electronic file notes, the GCMS notes, immigration should be able to get those back to you in a reasonable amount of time. Like usually they were getting them back in about 5 weeks, about a month and a bit. So if it's been much longer than that, you might want to follow up and put in a privacy complaint to the commissioner and say, why is this taking so long? If it was an electronic file request, they should be able to provide that. If, however, you asked for a full or complete copy of your application, then immigration has been sending a standardized letter saying, we can't physically access files. It's probably going to take us over a year.
Yeah. All right. So Ankit, he just tossed this one out. When will the next CC draw? Will it be in the coming months? Well, Ankit, I think probably, at least from the way I see it, we're looking at the spring. At least that's my thoughts. And we're just speculating here, guys. We really are. Excuse me. Let's see if we've got any other questions here. Okay, so Kartik says, it's been 1 month. Passport is in IRCC New Delhi for stamping. No updates, no mail. Reply, nothing. Everyone else got back within 1 week. Kartik, that's a good question. All we do, as immigration lawyers, we look historically at our own experience with a particular office. We look at, anecdotally what's happening with our clients. We reach out to our fellow colleagues across the country to see what their experiences are, to see if there's been something unusual. The reality, Kartik, is that, it's hard for us to know what the issue is. If you're seeing people get theirs back in 1 week, and trust me, we get a lot of these, you guys. We get a lot of people who say, my friend got their application processed in this period of time, or it's been taking other people only this time. Why am I so much longer? Well, yeah, we don't always know. And you can't always rely on what other people's experiences have been to know for sure what's going to happen to you. But yeah, you're doing everything that you can in the circumstances. Following up with, with requests directly to the visa office. But if you haven't received anything and for sure you've submitted it properly, they've got it. There's no chance that somehow you didn't follow the instructions properly and it went somewhere else. Then it's a waiting game. So yeah, 1 month is a little bit lengthier, but we have heard of people who've had theirs stuck for a little bit longer too. Anything to add to that one, Alicia?
Just make sure that whenever you send anything, you've got tracking on your packages and you've got proof of delivery.
Oh, this is awesome. I have to pull this one up. Okay. Baltej says, Mark is making money by saying you need a consult. Wow. I'm going to give a round of applause for that. So I'm assuming that Baltej, I'm not sure exactly. He's probably resents the fact that I'm encouraging people to go over and book a consultation. Wow. I love these comments because they give me an opportunity to explain a few things. And thank you for your comment, Baltej. The reality is, yes, Alicia and I are immigration lawyers. And sometimes people ask questions and we don't have enough information in order to answer them properly. And we'd classify those as legal advice. Information is free, right? You can go online. You can look up the government website. Just like Baltej, I'm assuming he's a super researcher, and I'm not sure why he's watching the channel if he has a concern with me referring people to book immigration consultations. But the reality is, when it comes to immigration, it is far more complex than immigration would like you to believe. And this is one of the struggles we have, because if people like Baltej here could sit over our shoulders, and I had 5 this morning, I would say at least 4 were individuals who had overlooked or missed something small in their application, or there was something that they just didn't appreciate. Often you don't know what you don't know, right? And so they had called us after things had gone bad. And then one of the things that we do as lawyers is we try to help people to fix their problems when things don't go well. But I'll be honest, I hate it. I hate doing that. And Alicia, I don't know if you feel the same way. I would by far rather have someone reach out and book a consult with us to help them avoid making those mistakes, which in some cases they're irreparable. We can't fix them. So Baltej here, absolutely we make money doing this. And the fees that we charge are you know, in recognition of the time that we've spent learning our craft and becoming immigration lawyers. And so I think neither Alicia nor I will ever excuse the fact that we charge for the consults we provide. But this live Q&A is our opportunity to give back to all of you. And those of you who are asking questions that are of general importance that benefit other people, it really, really is great for us, because when we share that one answer for free, it's amplified to thousands of people who then watch the consults after. So I really appreciate Baltej actually posting that, because, and it gives me a good opportunity to shift back here and to, let's see if I can find the page. I don't know if I have it anymore. Maybe I lost it. I'll just do a quick little search. If you don't have your question answered, or you have something that's just complex, or you're looking for extra assistance with your application to make sure that you don't fall into one of those categories of the 5 people that I had a consult with this morning, come here, click on this link and book a consultation with us. Because I can tell you, in that 25 minutes that you book that consult, you can book for longer if you want to. We can often make sure that those pitfalls that you're going to fall into, that you're aware of them and you know how to deal with it. And then within our firm as well, it's a great lead in. We also, if you go to our approach here, this is our collaborative review approach. So we're a lot different than many firms. Very rarely do we step in and say, we want to be big brother or big sister and just do your whole application for you. Don't ask us questions. Just give us the information we need and we'll file it for you because you can't do it yourself. We don't act like that. We work directly with our clients to collaboratively, that means together, review applications, and then the clients go forward and file their own applications. And so that nature of representation we love. And I think both, you know, I keep speaking on behalf of Alicia, but I will never go back to the old way. I won't, because you guys, especially those who are watching these videos, are DIYers at heart, and you want to have control of your application. You want to learn, and we spend a lot of time teaching you. So it's not just us representing, but we educate you so that you know what we know, so that when the application is prepared, we've got both of us. And I've said this lots in the past, that you on your own, and this includes Baltej here, we'll pull him up again. You on your own may read through everything, think you've got everything covered, and just because of speed, like all of you TR to PR pathway folks, or individuals that are just trying to do it on their own, you might miss something. Maybe it's just an oversight. You knew the answer, but you just missed something. You know, even when you hire counsel, we're not perfect. And sometimes we even might miss something that you put in your questionnaire that you filled out for us. We don't deal with that approach anymore. But together, when we're on a call together, a Zoom call, and we're doing a screen share and we're going through every question, it's pretty rare that both you and us at the same time are going to miss things. And I love it, and I'll never ever go back to it. And we charge money for that too. And you can go to our website and see what we charge. But we think that, well, I'll be honest, I had this discussion with Chanel this morning, Alicia, about consultations. And I genuinely feel that people are going to have a greater chance of success if they trust us to help them go through the process than if they file on their own. And I'll never make an excuse for that. And largely because I've seen how many consults that we have. So there we go. So I love these opportunities when people post things like that. And obviously people can go to our website, our Google, check out the Google reviews and the people that join us here. So, but I respect your comment, Baltej, and I think I know where you were getting. And sometimes people just feel like you shouldn't have to pay anything, and that's fine. There's lots of free information out there, but if we get it wrong as your immigration counsel, well, you've got recourse. And the Law Society, you know, they like to hear about it when lawyers of all sorts do not provide proper advice. So you pay us to make sure that you get it right the first time. Anything to add, Alicia, on my little long answer there?
I will add that I've been an immigration lawyer for a long time. I think it's coming up 17 or 18 years now. And there are very few, I can't think of anybody actually, who's an immigration lawyer who has given back more than Mark. And I've only recently joined with Mark. I've only been with him for like a year and a bit now, maybe a year and a half. And Mark is on here on YouTube. He is posting information. He is making sure that people know when things happen with immigration. He's giving updates. Honestly, he's a crazy person. He is up all hours of the night working on this, and none of this is he's getting paid for. He's doing this because he feels he's got a social obligation to do it, and he's giving back to people. I honestly believe that, Mark. So I think you've done a massive amount to try to provide genuine assistance and information. And there is a difference between information and advice. It's not professional for me to give advice unless I know enough about somebody's situation and I understand and can talk to them in person. So I don't give free advice because there's no way in a tiny little question like that that pops up on a screen that I know enough about your life to be able to give you proper advice. But I can give you information. And I think Mark has done more than any other immigration lawyer that I can think of to give fantastic information to as many people as possible. So I don't have a little clap function on my screen, but I'm going to clap for you, Mark. There you go.
Well, okay, just so you guys know, I am paying Alicia actually to say that. So
He's not. He's not.
you know, it's funny. It's interesting. I just skipped down to the comments and I know, and I don't want to single that person out either. You know, there's this world that is just so, you know, there's so much information out there, right? And there's so much for free. So I deal with this a lot, and Alicia deals with this a lot. You know, why should I pay you? And so I'm just going to post some of the comments. We'll pull them on, and we are really, you know, we are kind of wrapping up our live session today. We're already crossed over an hour here. We've been going a long time, and I have to drive up to Calgary myself today here, so we'll probably wrap it up. But so here's a comment. Let's say nobody has an obligation to work for free for you guys. They are professionals and they don't work for free. Same as you. Appreciate the free info that not many will give you. And then Masavan says, it was a pleasure chatting with you today. Yes, it was, my friend. You always provide concise information and very easy to talk to. So I had a consult, all right, with them today. So and then Shivam says, can you share your link website? If you go in the description, there should be a link to book a consultation with us. But all you have to do is just go over to our website and just type in Holthe Law. So if you type in holthelaw.com, it will pull up here, and then you can click on speak to a lawyer right there. I love those comments with people. You know, they just open up so many things. Mohammed says, how much money, Mark, you guys charge for misrep work permit? Okay. I think what you're asking, Mohammed, is probably how much money do we charge to help or assist with a potential misrepresentation that you may be made in your work permit application, I think is what you're asking. And Mohammed, every single person that comes to our office, we always require them to book a consult with us. Now, depending upon the type of work that we do for individuals, you can see our legal fees are all listed here. You can go through and see them. For the matters that are here, if you ultimately retain us, well, aside from the access to information request, the consult fee that you pay, we credit that. There are some things like responses to reconsideration requests and other things that are not a specific listed thing, like dealing with this misrep where the consult isn't credited towards it, but they form a critical part of our decision to work together. Whether, you know, maybe there's nothing that we can even do to help you. And so we don't want to quote this big fee and have you pay it to realize that it's not going to work out. So anyways, here's a good question from Canadian Beer. That is so awesome. Hey guys, can please confirm that hiring an immigration lawyer does any effect on our study permit? And this is a great question too. One thing that neither Alicia nor I will ever say is that by hiring us, we can somehow guarantee that your application is going to be approved, or that by hiring us, an officer is somehow going to treat your application differently. There's one certainty, and that is we can't change your facts. So your background, your work history, your ties to your home country, you know, your education plan, there are things that we can have a distinct influence on, like even organizing and preparing that plan. We can assist you to present your information in a way that's going to to make it really easy for an officer to understand and hopefully make the decision, the positive decision. But Alicia, what are your thoughts on this question?
So I agree with you, Mark. Anybody who says that by hiring them, they can guarantee your application, you better run the other direction. So no lawyer can ever say that. It's contrary to what we can say in terms of advertising guidelines. You can never guarantee success on an application. But what we can say is exactly what Mark was saying. You've got two sets of eyes to review everything in this application. And we have seen so many applications that we can provide advice on what types of things normally go wrong. What do people normally forget to put in? What is, the evidence that's required in order to properly prove your temporary intent? That's most of the reason why study permits get refused is people fail to prove temporary intent. And what constitutes temporary intent is going to be specific to each individual. So I would work with you to understand, well, what are your circumstances? What's your study plan? How can you show that you're going to use this Canadian education to create a career back in your home country? And that is where you get benefit from hiring an immigration lawyer.
Exactly. And we'll go back to Muhammad here. So he said, this is what really breaks my heart, Alicia. And I wish you guys could understand how often we see this. He said he already paid a lot to a company, almost $5,000. I'm assuming it was the agency or whatever representative that he hired to file what must be an original work permit application. But if Muhammad now has concerns about misrepresentation and he's paid this company $5,000 and he's not going back to that company to try to correct things, that's where it really breaks my heart. That's money that not only he paid in faith to this company to help him get his work permit, but now either through him maybe not providing information they asked, or maybe them specifically counseling, which we've seen, Alicia, to misrepresent, you've not only lost the 5,000, but you've jeopardized your chance at immigration. And that's why I ring the bell every time and say, look, Mohammed, the best way to deal with this is for you to book a consultation with Alicia and have her look at everything and see exactly what the issue is and how best we can support you. And that's why consultations are so important. And unlike maybe some other places where the consult is just a place for them to collect information and then they'll go back and do some other research, like that's not us. We charge for the consults because you actually get tangible advice in the midst of those 25 minutes. And how can we do that? Because like Alicia said, she's got like 18, 19 years, and I'm actually 2 years behind Alicia. So whatever she has, I've got 2 years less, but we've been at this gig for a long time. And that's where the knowledge and experience comes from, together with our law degrees, which help us to understand what the law is. Although, as you guys can see, Alicia is way smarter than I am. Okay. And then we've got a follow-up here. Take advantage of the Q&A and make questions instead of negative comments that are a waste of time. Absolutely. And you can see how long, it was important for us to talk about this today, and we will. I'll be back Wednesday. Alicia will be back on Thursday. Eventually, Alicia will kind of transition once I get her set up, and she'll do her own Q&As because she doesn't need me. I'm just handing questions to her. But the reality is we're here to help. And so you can see how much time we wasted here that we could have been asking questions just because we had to clarify. And I think sometimes we feel like we have to justify kind of what we're doing. But it's fair. It's a fair question because we're in an industry full of very, very seedy things. And there's lots of, people that are just not ethical and really don't know what they're doing. And the standards of becoming a representative now, they're slowly starting to raise with the creation of Queen's University. But, the reality is, I should say, the Queen's Law program for immigration practitioners. But before that, the bar was really low for what it would take to become an immigration consultant. For us lawyers, it was always hard. But specializing or focusing in one area of the law is a more recent kind of phenomenon with lawyers. So, yeah. So anyways, long story short, yes, we definitely love all feedback, and we don't want anyone to feel like, we're just bypassing their questions or their comments because, they don't agree with what we do. And I respect everybody's thoughts, but, so I think we could add Alicia on there. And then I think we've got Muhammad. Let's see if there's anything else. This one says, I love the way how you reply in a very empathetic way. You're a very amazing explanatory man. You should be the new upcoming immigration minister because I believe you'll fix the whole mess. Oh my goodness, that's a little over the top. And then you can see Hamza says, thanks, Baljeet, for making us lose 10 minutes of question time. That's true. But don't worry, you guys. Your questions, we will be back on Wednesday and Thursday of next week, and you'll have the full time and opportunity. So, and then thanks Olu for the comments, and Hamza, all of you that are making nice comments. I don't even think I want to know what Manoush is saying to Baljeet there, but anyways, you posted, it's good. So good night, Divine. Good to see you, and all the other comments are very, very very positive, and we really appreciate that. Maybe let's hit a couple more, and then we'll wrap it up here. Field says, is Alicia taking clients in December, and what to do if you get a knock job at the end of the post-grad work permit? So Field, 100% Alicia is. And so
Yep.
the best thing to do is to book a consult with her early so that you can start to plan in advance so that you're not leaving things to the very end. Because the reality is if you're only getting your skilled position at the end of your post-grad work permit, that can be problematic if you don't have enough to qualify for PR. So any extra thoughts on that one, Alicia?
Yeah, the other thing I'll mention is that it takes a long time to go through the labor market impact assessment process, and there are no extensions on PGWPs. There's no extension to a post-grad work permit. Once you have one, that's it, it's over. And so unless there's a very short recapture of time. Like the only way that you're going to get longer on your PGWP is if they issued it for a shorter period of time because your passport was expiring. So most of the time, if your PGWP was issued for its normal term, you're done. And if you need to transition to an LMIA, then it's really important very early to start talking with your employer about what has to happen for them to support a labor market impact assessment. It's got to take at least 4 weeks of continuous advertising. They've got to do recruiting. They've got to prove they can't find a Canadian. And then there's ESDC, Service Canada's got to process that LMIA before it's possible for you to switch over on a work permit to be a named LMIA supported worker. So.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So I think we got Phil. I'm just looking here to see if there's anyone else that we missed. Yeah, there was a lot of questions for sure, you guys, that that slipped through. Yes, do another one. Absolutely. We're going to pull in Chinook. She's talking about Will Tao and the live session that we did on Immigration Nation. I actually got an email from Will today about the Chinook system, and it's the way they bulk process applications, and it's not a fun situation at all. So yeah. So thank you so much. I think Kartik, we got to yours about the 1 month passport, New Delhi. Yeah, that's tied up. Many people are experiencing that. Field, we got to yours. And let's see. Kartik says, my study permit was approved and passport was received. Yeah, 20 as per VFS update. Don't know what's taking so long to stamp. You're right. Like this is just a product of especially that visa office that is just very, very slow. And why some are getting through before others, I think Alicia and I we're at a loss. A lot of these we're at a loss. And so let's just see here. So yeah, so I think Mohammed's just clarifying. Mohammed, we recommend that you book a consult. He's just talking about what happened. So it looks like he didn't disclose refusals from other countries, which is so common. So go over, Mohammed, book a consult, and let's see what we can do to help, okay? Let's just flip down here. I want to make sure that I'm not missing any of the other ones. You're very welcome, Canadian beer. That is so funny. Some of you guys and your handles are just hilarious. Okay, well, there you go, Mohammed. He says, Work Global Canada. I don't know who they are. They told me to get a lawyer they can't help. And that's so frequent, you guys. When things go south, I hope that you would think to reach out to an immigration lawyer. Doesn't have to be Alicia and I, but someone who has experience that knows what they're doing. Okay.
Keep in mind one thing too is that it's illegal. It's an offense under the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act to counsel misrepresentation, right? So if somebody told you to lie, that's an offense. but there's not a lot that's not going to help you a ton if now immigration's going to come after you for misrep. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, there was a ton. I know we had a lot of comments that were coming through, and so remember, we will be back, you guys. Let's see here. I'm just looking to see if there's any other ones that we've missed. I don't think so. At least let's see here. Yeah, that's it. All right. Okay, Alicia, thank you so much for joining me today in this awesome live Q&A on this Friday afternoon. I hope you've got lots of fun things planned with your family. I'm going to make my trek up to Calgary here in a little bit, but we will, we'll be back again, you guys, here on Wednesday. I'll be back Wednesday morning, and then Thursday, I think we're shooting for 11 o'clock, aren't we, Alicia? Kind of as the regular time. So watch for that. Where there's a need, we respond. All right, guys, take care. Thanks, Alicia.
bye.